Welcome to the first dynamic learning activity I'm going to show you. This one I'm going to go into detail a bit more. The second one I'm just going to point out a few things so you can see just how creative one can be. Now, these dynamic learning activities were put together so that we could verify that people understood what we're calling the core 4 human performance tools. Remember, we're working in nuclear, we're highly regulated, and there are a lot of things that we don't want to take for granted. So we've highlighted the core 4, and I'll briefly go over those. When the two workers would come to do this activity, generally they didn't know each other. And that's likely going to be the condition we're about to put them in. This was designed to go through things to prep people for going into our vacuum building outage. Each unit periodically goes down for roughly 2 months of maintenance and inspection. The vacuum building, because it's the backup system for all 4 units, there's one at A and one at Bruce B, supports all 4. You have to actually down the reactors to a steady, safe state and not be generating anything, because you no longer have your main emergency containment. And it's for the steam. If we lose coolant in the core, then there's a lot of heat, which means more steam than the turbines can handle to actually generate the power. So there are massive pumps that open valves, and the opening is probably 5 feet in diameter, and there are like 20 of these that will open for all that steam to rush into the vacuum building. You saw that in the one picture, how tall it is, how big it is. The steam can go in there and be doused from water from up on top in order to immediately cool it. So they're going into a somewhat unknown situation for most of the workers, and they're going to be working with people they don't know. Because we want to get the work done as quickly as possible while still remaining safe, we're going to bring more than 650 people into the Bruce B vacuum building that do not normally work at Bruce B. So before we feel comfortable with sending them, we wanted them to do this DLA. Now, everybody at Bruce B had already done this. If they didn't have credit in it, they were not going to be able to participate until they did go through this activity. Remember, a dynamic learning activity is to challenge them. While it will verify certain skills we know we've already trained, we're going to see kind of troubleshooting how they apply them. But this goes beyond skill. What we're looking for, again, I have to emphasize, because it's a nuclear situation, we have to really be concerned with attitudes. You've probably always done knowledge, skills, and abilities. Well, we do knowledge, skills, and attitudes as they go through. So when the two come to the table, in order to kind of relax, get them prepared, we're actually going to take them through the core 4, see what they know, what their interpretation is, and so that hopefully they'll pick up on some cues that this is what they should be demonstrating. Most of them came on a break between doing other work, and so mentally they may be waiting on their lunch. They may know they have something they have to get back to. So you want it to be engaging without being something that is purposely set up for them to fail. And really, other than if they can't tell me what the core 4 are before we get started or seem confused, I would ask them to go sit over there, read the core 4, and then come back. This is not meant to be a punishment, necessarily a pass-fail. It's to, again, get them prepared and get them into the right mindset. So for the core four, what we've got are procedure use and adherence, effective communication, self-checking and verbalization, and stop when unsure. So for procedure use and adherence, because there are two of them, one person is likely going to be manipulating the DLA, and the other person is going to be reading through the procedure as they go along. So for procedure use and adherence, I would ask the one on the right, can you give me an example of how you would know where you last were in the procedure? To give you a little bit of background, every time they go out to do work, in order to get the work order, they also print out the most current procedure. We are constantly upgrading. This plant was built starting in the mid-70s, and at that time the life expectancy was 25 years. Well, we're well past that. We've refurbished a bunch, but we're constantly doing engineering changes on a daily basis to improve or replace parts. And so this is a critical step in what they do every day. And we were having people volunteering to go into the vacuum building who came from more desk jobs than actually out in the power plant manipulating valves or pumps or working on wiring. So we wanted to verify that they were understanding how they could help the person they would be assigned to go into the vacuum building with to do the work. So in procedure use and adherence, what we're going to be looking for, and when they start through the DLA, we're going to be watching the person with the procedure, that they circle the step they're starting, and once they complete the step, that they draw a slash through it. It's one of the things we reinforce constantly throughout their initial and continuing training. The circle lets them know if they have to back out that they started down that step. The slash means they completed that step, and it's very easy for somebody to come in back after them if they've only made it partway through the procedure. Some procedures take more than the 8 to 10 hour shift somebody may be working, so they're going to do a hot handoff to somebody else. So they need to know exactly where they are in it for the other person to pick up. That's also where effective communication comes in. If you'll notice, my grid has letters for each row and numbers for each column. Everything in the plant has a number and a letter associated with it so you can identify it. As you saw, there are 4 reactors. So there's 4 of all of those. And some of the panels, there are 50 panels for each reactor that look alike. So now you're talking, there's 200 of those. So one has to know exactly where you are. We don't have floors. We have elevations in the plant so people know where they're going. So for effective communication, they're going to use the alphabet, Alpha, Beta, Charlie, Delta, Echo, Foxtrot, to say where they are along. And you'll also see the parts. We have the music integrated circuit. We have the weird card. We have speaker 1. You see we have all these different elements, and we have switch 1. Now they can say SP1 once you've heard them say speaker 1, and SW1 once they've said switch 1 somewhere along the line, so that we know where they're at. The check with verbalization goes along with that with the procedure person is going to say, this is what you're going to do. The other person would likely take their finger and say, okay, you want me to go to Echo 5 and replace 3 alpha with resistor 1. Okay? They've been told they're going to put a resistor in and they're going to put the batteries in. And this speaker, we're testing a new alarm that the speaker will play Happy Birthday and it will play it once. So 3-way, not only will the procedure person say what the steps are, the person doing the work will repeat. You want me to go to Echo 5 and take part 3 alpha off the grid and replace it with resistor 1 from Echo 5 to Echo 7. The person with the procedure would say, I understand you have replaced resistor 1 in the area of Echo 5 to Echo 7. And this will go back and forth. It took me a long time to figure out. Every time I talk to people, they would say, I immediately say, I understand. But it's habit, and that's what you want it to be, that when they hear something, they repeat it back to you, and then you say that they have repeated it properly back to you. This is one of the other little caveats that we're looking for while they're doing this in the three-way communication, that the procedure reader is not going to say, that's correct. Think just a moment, will you? If you were here, I would be asking for your input of why do you think I would not want to say, that's correct. The reason is, a lot of times, number one, it's noisy in the plant. It's hard to hear. Plus, generally, we're wearing some sort of ear protection because of that. But I may be in an airtight suit in order to keep down my exposure to any kind of radiation. So I have a radio on, and it may or may not, I may not hear it very well. And so we want to make sure that there is no confusion. And that's one of the things we're looking for as the two work through the problem, is what kind of verbalization and communication are they using. Now, most of them have done a DLA, so they know there's a trick somewhere in here. A lot of them who have been there for a while, they're given the procedure, and it's purposely a little bit vague in the beginning. It tells them where 2A is connected and where the music integrated circuit is, where the battery pack is, where the switch is and the speaker is, but it purposely doesn't say where several of the other connectors are. Or it may only say that 3B is connected to along the grid at 6A. So one of the things you're going to be looking for is, did they flip it over and look at the picture before they started? And a number of them will. They'll go through and verify everything on here with the picture before they even replace the resistor. If they did, they would have caught that one of the parts is not corrected, even though it looks like it is not connected correctly. So if they didn't look at it and they followed the procedure, they would be told to put the batteries in. Let's see how well I can do this at this angle. And that when they're ready to flip the switch, they're supposed to come get me as their supervisor so I can verify, because this is a brand new system. It's kind of cute that the speaker is going to, for the alarm, is going to play Happy Birthday. And they've been told it will play Happy Birthday once through. So if they've just followed the procedure as they've gone down, they've connected the resistor, they've put the batteries in, they've come and gotten me, and now they're ready to flip the switch. Did it stop? No. So what I will be looking for is that they question, wait a minute, didn't stop. So they remember their pre-job briefing and what the procedure said. They've hit the switch and turned it off because that's putting it into a safe state. They've stopped because they're unsure. It was safe before they flipped the switch. I did have one or two take the batteries out. As long as they disabled it, that it wasn't playing. And they would look at me and say, what's wrong? And I would coach them to say, okay, was there anything in the procedure up here that something's not in the right place? You followed the procedure down below. let's look at the picture on the back, and they'll look and they'll go, oh, 3B should be connected at delta 4 and beta 4. Okay, guys, let's see what happens. It played through once. As the facilitator, I would say, okay, you've got the switch right, you've got the batteries in, you've got the resistor right, the music chip, we've got this chip right. What happened? They hopefully would immediately go, I've got to turn it off. It wasn't supposed to do that. Again, it gives us a way of saying, do you remember to put it in a safe state without harping on it? It should be, they heard something they shouldn't have heard. It became quite interesting as a facilitator about how to press things to make it go off again. When we were done, we would go back over their whole way through the procedure and talk about what they did right, what they might be able to improve, and give them a little bit of a attaboy about what they understood, and to prepare them for going into the building. The second DLA, I'm not going to actually go through all of it, but I'm going to show it to you, was a rather interesting one in that it included a fan, and the idea was that number one, again, that they would put the batteries in, and that there are two switches. One is the on-off switch, and another is to press a switch to make the connection going. The key thing here is that when I turn it on, it's supposed to, the blade is supposed to go at a certain speed, and the light is supposed to be at a certain come on or come off. And what happens here is when I flip the switch, the flame goes, the light goes on. When I press the button, it's supposed to slow down. And if you noticed, it didn't slow down. The procedure says they're to flip this switch if things don't go right. But can you guess what most people did when it came time? When they hit the button, the minute it went wrong, the first thing we do is take our finger off. Again, the activity is set up to give them something to remember when they're out there in the field working on something. You have to follow the procedure. Just like if you stuck your finger in the hole, you have to leave your finger in the hole, and it's switching off the switch or taking the batteries out that puts it in the safe, known state.